Government was giving away millions of acres of land. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get out.
This slapcat has seriously been a lifesaver for me. Like this.
I got a lot going on this evening, family. Oh my goodness. Welcome, 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 one and all. What's up, Trey Lincoln? Thank you for joining the live. Mike Michelson, I see you, fam. Thank you for joining the live. Joseph Thompson, thank you for joining the live. Brian Johnson, thank you for joining the live. Erie Blackfire, I thank you so much for joining the live. B1 in his house. I love it. I love you all, Black and Strong. I thank you so much for joining me. You know who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for Democratic down ballot, Republican top of the ticket. Yes, I'm still on my square. Okay? If the media can consume your minds with the dreaded spin about Russiagate and all these kind of things to get you to the polls to unseat a racist in office for 4 years with racist plural in office a combined 65 years, then I can surely be on Democratic down ballot till we get another opportunity to fix this in 2024 and then again in 2022. I said that backwards, but you understand where I'm coming from. Yeah, if they can get your mind on this nonsense and convince you that Trump is more of a boogeyman than the oppressors y'all just run out here in droves to vote for, then surely I can reach some woke boomers, some woke Gen X's, and some woke millennials to show them lovingly as I can, family, that we have got to deliver a mixed bag until these Democrats cough up the reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. Yeah, folks coming for ADOS. Yes, family. We don't have time for the haters, family. We got work to do. There's much work to do. That's why y'all haven't seen me the last couple of days. I am in the trenches here in California, fighting with everything in me for the ADOS, fighting for that distinction because I am finding out who people really are. I have been going hard in the paint for ADOS, defending our use of the name, which, oh, by the way, the hashtag was created from Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., okay? He called us American descendants of slavery first. I personally want us to put chattel in there because I've been on panels where the white folks who were descendants of indentured servitude believe they too are American descendants of slavery. So if we put chattel in there, we put an extra secure gate on it. But I find that the word ADOS referring to ourselves as American descendants of slavery is an insult to white folks who don't want to be reminded of the horrors of the chattel enslavement they put us through, because they want to distance themselves from that conversation about that check in the trillions over multi-generations. And what I'm also finding is that there are a lot of black bougie folks out here, okay? They barely have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of themselves. But they too are rubbed the wrong way by our reference to American descendants of slavery. They don't like that we put that gate up, family. Why? Because they don't want to identify or be reminded of the chattel slavery in which we were born, something I'm very proud of. When I think that we are now down from 40 million, God knows, to around 35 million in this country. When I think about the first slaves in 1619, we were enslaved prior to that by the Spaniards. Many of you know if you've been a friend of the show for a while. When I think about the numbers that we've grown to from those amazing, resilient, oh my God, when you understand the horrors of what our people went through, it gives you a new sense of pride to descend from chattel slavery. As in the institution, I'm not saying that we're slaves still, but in a lot of ways, we still are, family. When you look at the egregious racial wealth gap of over 100 trillion since COVID, 90% of us, ADOS predominantly, share less than 700 billion since COVID. Wouldn't you deduce, isn't it reasonable to deduce that we're still enslaved? When you look at the author of the 94 crime bill, segregationist Jim Crow Joe, and how his crime bill helped to facilitate the imprisonment of close to 1 million Black men, okay, more than all the women in prison throughout the world for the new slavery in the private prisons that the federal government gives funding to the state for those beds to warehouse us, many of which are there for nonviolent offenses, okay? But they can't bail out and they can't get the proper representation because they're in the hood, okay? Which many of us are a stone's throw from. At least we know people and have people still in the hood, okay? So I'm finding that the Black bougie who really want to identify more with whiteness in this kumbaya kind of politics that is going on right now, want to be kept the slave family. And that American descendant of chattel slavery rubs them the wrong way. They don't want to be referred to as that, which is the very reason why we need to lean in, ADOS. We need to remind everyone what we are owed for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. What's up, Sekou Cisse? Thank you for joining the live. Tanya Princess Jones, thank you so much for joining the live, my love. We have a very exciting show for you tonight. I'm not going to be real chatty at the top because I've got so much to dig into and so much to share. Oh my God, the puckery just does not stop, family. We don't get a break. I want to start off real quick because I don't want this thing to actually slow down the speed of my StreamYard, which, you know, having too many windows open can absolutely do. Let's start with Black Lives Matter in this article. I won't read the whole thing, but I got to read to a certain point. And how they ridiculously believe that they can now get reparations after delivering Biden and Harris. It's cute. After Biden win, Black activists demand reparations for slavery and police reform. Now, we've only been on this for a couple of years, right, family? Okay, we've only been on this a couple of years and we're totally ignored. But they somehow believe they've got the formula and they know the solution to getting us the reparations and the police reform. Moving on. When President-elect Joe Biden addressed supporters last week to accept the highest office in the land, he took a moment to thank one specific group of Americans. Quote, when this campaign was at its lowest, the African American community stood up again for me, Biden said. They always have my back, and I'll have yours, right? Anyway, leading Black Lives Matter activists plan to hold him and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris to that IOU with a vengeance. In a tumultuous election year, one that both gave rise to a new civil rights movement in response to the death of George Floyd. Let me stop, take a breath. We are the new civil rights movement. But what did I say at the top of the show? American descendant of chattel slavery makes them very uncomfortable. So there was a time when Black Lives Matter made them very uncomfortable. Now they're donning them. What they say? The new civil rights movement. Black Lives Matter is being donned that, over echoing the American descendants of slavery. That's been in all the major papers, on many of the major news channels. Whether it's been controversy or not, we put reparations on the map, okay? Now they're getting credit. It's to be, expected, family. Listen, we're not in this to be in a pissing match over who gets this done. All hands on deck. I know that many of us will be unsung sheroes and heroes, just like the civil rights movement. Many people didn't get credit for that, but they had started it long before Martin Luther King Jr. attached his name to it. There were people like the ADOS movement putting in that work, okay? Let's see here. And, okay, I'm going to back it up. In a tumultuous election year, which, oh, by the way, me speaking, it's not over. It's mighty funny to me how Trump was admonished and chastised for calling the election too soon, and they're still counting votes. They're still counting votes. They're still finding a lot of voter election fraud happening. Now, you are naive if you believe that you can sit up here during not one but two election cycles and see the Democrats, the DNC, interfere in the elections to stop Bernie Sanders, who was predominantly the people's choice. I would have voted for Bernie, okay? I would have voted for a Bernie Nina Turner ticket. Yes, I would have, okay? No, they weren't offering reparations, but they had a lot of things, at least in there. They offering more than what Biden-Harris is offering. So you are really naive if you think that this country has interfered in all the elections throughout the born world, okay? While blaming Russiagate for Hillary's loss and interfering in two elections to stop the Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders, even forcing two losers, Biden and Kamala, to the top of the ticket to use and weaponize the Clinton News Network and the like to get you scared of the racists in office for 4 years. So much so that you run to the polls demanding nothing in exchange for your vote, to unseat the boogeyman racist in office for 4 years with the boogeyman racist in office 47 years, a combined 65 years with the boogie woman racist Kamala Harris, and not believe that they could be in the process of committing election fraud, weaponizing a pandemic to win this election. You are naive, and I got a Brooklyn Bridge I can sell you for $25 if you really think that these Democrats are above that capability. Wow. And it stands to reason folks want to say, well, if they would steal it for the top of the ticket, why not do it for all the people down ballot? I didn't say they were that clever, okay? I'm saying it's very ironic to me that you lose seats in the House and you're close to losing the Senate, and yet Kamala and Biden are at the top? Something ain't right, family. You mean to tell me the 70 million who clearly voted for Trump There were a few of them undecided and voted Biden-Harris at the top and Republican in the House and the Senate. You have to think beyond this spin on the corporate media with 3K's news network. You really must put your thinking caps on, family, and not be bamboozled and hustled. And I'm going to share with you how that is continuing with Michael Moore momentarily. But let me finish this. Okay, so back to the text. In a tumultuous election year, one that both gave rise to a new civil rights movement in response to the death of George Floyd and saw Black Americans suffer disproportionately from the COVID-19 pandemic and staggeringly high unemployment, Black Lives Matter activists are asking the new administration to make Black matters paramount. Quote, for decades, Black people have shown up time and time again for a country that consistently tells us that our lives don't matter, said Mary Hooks, a founding member of Black Lives Matter Atlanta and co-director of Southerners on New Ground, a social justice advocacy organization. Quote, beyond a cheap thank you, we need this administration to be bold and unapologetic about paying the debt through enacting policy changes. After they put them in office, you see. After Biden accepted the presidency, Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors, who, oh, by the way, just got some big TV deal. Where's that money? All that money that has poured in from all over the world to spill back into the community. Ms. Cullors, where's that money to pour back into the communities to help those without jobs, without employment, without housing? Where's that money? But you are on the networks, you know, in different articles talking about your new TV deal. Yeah, I love the way you're utilizing your movement to really serve the ADOS. That's just ducky and peachy. After Biden accepted the presidency, Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors wrote an open letter to Biden and Harris saying, we want something for our vote and ask for an immediate meeting. To date, no meeting has been set, which is concerning, said Melina Abdullah, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and co-director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, a national organizing arm of the organization. Hopefully, who sold you on hope and change? No Obama, right? Full of hope. Hopefully, this is just a delay, said Abdullah, who also is a professor of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. We need to be sure this administration realizes that Black people voted out Donald Trump. Because of us, we saw a massive turnout and a rejection of blatant racism. You replaced a racist in office for 4 years with a racist, plural, in office a combined 65 years. But that's a rejection of blatant racism to unseat Trump. To the degree to which the incoming administration works with a group such as Black Lives Matter will help answer a larger unresolved question. How much influence will the progressive arm of the Democratic Party have over career centrists such as Biden and Harris, a former California Attorney General, during the biggest reckoning on civil rights and racism since the 1960s? None. Okay? Absolutely none. That leads me into what a member of the squad has recommended to make everybody whole but ADOS. Okay, let's get into it, segueing into Ayanna Pressley. So we can get on to the main topic I can read and get you guys out. So let's see here. Ayanna Pressley, she says a few immediate priorities for the incoming administration. Comprehensive COVID relief. Well, is she speaking of the vaccines? Is she speaking of, what is she speaking of, and who is she exactly speaking to and about? I know from what the data reflects that because the ADOS don't have health care by and large, they can't afford it because they don't have jobs. And if they do, the jobs don't pay enough to afford Obamacare, that we are dying disproportionately from the COVID. And we've got the largest number of cases of COVID. Now, unless that's changed, why do we need comprehensive COVID relief without specifying that it's to go to the ADOS first and foremost? Like akin to what myself, ADOS DMV, Triangle ADOS had put together a COVID relief response that would have put actual dollars in the pockets of American descendants of chattel slavery. Okay. I think we were going for $6,000 a month. We definitely wanted, the type of health care that the Congress benefits from for our people. There are lots of goodies in there that we were fighting for specifically for our group. So here she does a comprehensive COVID relief. You got to be careful because these Democrats are starting to push that vaccine family. I'm going to do a whole nother show on why that's all wrong. Let me stay on course because y'all know how I can get all over the road. I was born to talk. Cancel student loan debt. I've already told you guys in the past, this fundamentally is a white wealth transfer. Of the ADOS, I think maybe 16 to 20% of us have degrees in this country. What about the other 80 to 84% of the ADOS? So canceling student debt is another white and immigrant wealth transfer because we aren't educated to the degree that they are. Can't afford college. And when we do, we get strung out on a bunch of student loan debt that we can't repay because they're not really hiring us. I've shared with you in the past shows that we're 44% degree down here and only 6% in the private sector. We don't have the complexion for the protection. Many of these interviewers want you to know Spanish. That knocks us out, okay? We don't know Spanish, and even our children who are yet to become of working age and competition age, they may know a little bit, poquito, but they don't know fluent Spanish. So that's another way to discriminate and lock us out. But that's what Ayanna is on, canceling student loan debt. Protect our immigrant neighbors. Protect our immigrant neighbors. I don't hear anything in that says protect the poor. Because dollars bring dignity. That's why we're fighting for the reparations. Okay? Dollars bring dignity. Protect our immigrant neighbors, not our ADOS, who are executed by government sanction, who have turned to murdering each other and robbing and stealing from each other in predominantly Black downtrodden communities because there's no education. They're set up with the preschool to prison pipeline. There are really no jobs. There are no jobs paying an American wage, not this $15 an hour. There's no real home ownership anymore. Obama created 1 million white millionaires during his tenure when 43% of ADOS lost their wealth under Obama. So the home ownership is done away with, especially given COVID and the foreclosures that are coming. Lack of business ownership in our communities, lack of health care in our communities. But she wants protections for our immigrant neighbors, not the people that just delivered Biden-Harris. No. Reverse anti-choice restrictions. Okay. More abortions for the Black community. Since 73, and this is some years ago, We've aborted about 20 million black babies. But she wants us to reverse anti-choice restrictions. These abortion clinics aren't in the white communities. They're in our communities. Because many of our people can't afford their babies and they're using sex as a form of escape from the things that they are blighted by. In the Muslim travel ban, decarceration. Decarceration, okay. Declare climate change a national emergency. I would venture to say that ADOS being tethered to the bottom in the country our ancestors built with their lives is the national emergency. Without reparations, we are going to continue to spiral out of existence. We will be living in third world, third class kind of shanties before long. If COVID doesn't do you in, what's coming for you economically is going to wipe us out. It's already happening out here in California. Okay? So moving on, that's that. Let me get back over here to see you guys and say hello to whomever I see new. Maurice Carlisle, thank you for joining the live. Marky Mark, thank you for joining the live. Okay, so let's get into my biggest disappointment. I've been a huge fan of Michael Moore for some time now, and I cannot believe, shout out to Jimmy Dore. I took notes from his show to put my talking points together because there's so much richness out there in the YouTube spaces, in the social media spaces that I know that we can miss a lot. So I try to have my ear on the ground to cover the things. Blind Focus, thank you for joining the live. I tried to keep my ear to the ground of some of my favorites so I can drill it down through an ADOS lens and help you understand what's going on to ADOS, okay? So let's get right into it. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll get into how much nonsense this really is from Michael Moore, who's usually very leftist in his views, and he has greatly disappointed me in what he said on the Stephen Colbert show. So I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to go through what's problematic with it. I'm going to do my best not to interrupt, but I may have to pause it because it's just so much. I may have some commentary in between. I'm going to try not to do that because I want to play it and then go through my notes and get to the reading for tonight. Hold on.
What have we learned? And I think the thing that's been the fact that we as Americans would allow a situation, so many situations actually to exist, whether it's taking babies out of their mother's arms, putting them in cages, whether it's...
Let me stop right there. Obama deported twice as many immigrants. Deported twice as many immigrants as Donald Trump. And ICE worked with him to get that done. That's why his numbers were like, I want to say 2 million to Donald Trump's maybe 800,000. I have to go and vet those numbers more closely. But I do know that Obama had the help of ICE to nab the immigrants as they were coming out of jail, to deport them in a way that worked against Trump, especially down here in Los Angeles. Okay? They stopped doing that. The sheriffs stopped helping ICE. Okay? Most folks in sanctuary cities were hidden by their governments, especially if they were Democrat, to impede Trump's ability to deport the immigrants who were here illegally. Obama got that off. Obama built those cages that you see those kids in. But nobody has smoke for Obama. But, and listen, disclaimer, I am not a Trump supporter. I do believe in weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. Absolutely. I voted green because I thought I had more support in the Democratic down ballot strategy. We've only been on it for 2 years. I thought I had more support where we can pretty much put anyone at the top other than Biden Harris and keep our hands clean from electing Trump. But the whole goal was to deliver a Republican top and a Democratic bottom. A Democratic Congress to protect the over 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. So in this next few minutes, I'm going to break all the way down to you how this is BS coming out of Michael Moore's mouth, and I'm going to support it with the facts of these Democrats, okay? Not a Trump supporter, but I do believe the best thing for this country is a Trump top a ticket, a red top, and a blue bottom. Moving on.
All the other stuff that we let this go on, it was done in our name. And, it's, we're going to have to answer for this someday because it was done in my name and my tax dollars paid for it.
And his tax dollars didn't pay for it when it was happening under Obama?
So I think that's I think it's going to take a while for us. And the way I guess we can redeem ourselves with this is our new president and vice president are going to do things that are going to be there for people. I mean, I just before we started, the thing came across that the Pope had called Joe Biden, and they had a conversation. And the Biden campaign, they put out a readout of what the conversation said, and in there Biden talked about to the Pope about how he was going to make America a welcoming place for people, for refugees, for the have-nots, and the have-nots that we have here are going to have the primary focus because
the have-nots that we have here are going to have a primary focus. From a president who said nothing will fundamentally change and a VP that says she's not doing anything specific for our group. And we are tethered to the bottom in the country our ancestors built with their lives. But Michael Moore is getting on that snowball train, that let me just make the people, put them in a state of sleep, detach them from reality, help them to go back to sleep. Let me massage them back to sleep by pretending that this man, the racist in office for 47 years and the co-racist in office for 15, are going to do something for the least of us in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Because, this is our second Catholic president. So,
that's been overlooked a little bit. Not as much of a deal has been made of that. But as a Catholic myself, I was really struck. First of all, I know Mr. Biden to be a frequent, if not daily, communicant, and he takes his faith very seriously. And I'm very moved by the conversations I've had with him, both publicly and privately, about faith. And you wrote an open letter to the vice president where you talk about his Catholicity, as my mother used to say, his Catholicity. Why is that important to you?
Because he and you and I, we all went to Catholic school and we all learned the same lessons. And I said to him in this letter, what are those lessons? The lessons were that the rich man will have a harder time getting into heaven than a camel will have getting to the eye of the needle.
What would Michael Moore know about that? In 2019, he was worth $50 million. Now I'm starting to see the trick bag Michael Moore has had us in all the while. So many people weaponizing the oppression of the oppressed. Hello, Black Lives Matter. Weaponizing the execution of our Black men, women, and children by the race soldiers to get TV deals. Michael Moore, worth $50 million in 2019, weaponizing his whiteness now to put the sheeple back to sleep on what really has happened to us with Biden in office for 47 years and Kamala in office for 15 or so.
Blessed are the poor. That we have to take care of those who are the least among us. That's how we'll be judged. So I said, I'm assuming, said this to him, that these are going to be the moral principles of the Biden presidency. I'm going to just assume that automatically, because I do believe he's a man of faith. And I think that is going to serve us really well. I mean, just for this example, Stephen, the fact that he picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate, put aside the fact that, Trump and Pence were right when they said she was ranked and is ranked as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So he could have gone the other way, but he went.
How in the world is she the most liberal? She has waffled on everything progressives wanted. She went backwards on Medicare for all. She went backwards on everything relative to the progressives to get this seat. But she's the most liberal. You see, massaging the sheeple to sleep. Why is he pretending like Biden, out of the kindness of his faith-filled heart, chose Kamala, when he knows full well Biden and Kamala were chosen by the donor class?
He went to the left when he chose his vice president. But more than that, he picked, if you remember the first debate.
Oh, yeah.
She went after him.
Oh, they butted heads, yeah.
And you could see on his face, he didn't know what to say. And he was like, later I thought maybe, he's got he has a conscience. There's a little voice in there saying, well, maybe she's got a point. It's like, but that was the younger me. And that's what she was throwing shade on, that younger self of Joe Biden. But the fact that not only he forgave that he held no grudge, that he just didn't forgive, he put her on the ticket. Who would do that? I would like to think I would, but I don't think I would. I don't know if you would. He did that. And I thought, wow, if that is his moral compass, if this is how he is toward people who he was probably mad at her that night, but he didn't hold it against her. She had the right to say it. And then he picks her to be vice president. This is such a positive sign for me that we are going to be in the polar opposite era than with the 4 years that we just went through.
So what politician do you know takes the rhetoric on the debate stage personal? Why is he applauding Biden for getting past the comments that Kamala made about him during the debates? Why is he snowing the people? Why is he pretending like this is some big deal born out of some type of moral compass that Biden possesses? Is this not the biggest snow job you've ever seen? This is crazy. This is Michael Moore saying this nonsense. It's almost done, family.
I would agree that while the United States still has the same problems it had 2 weeks ago, at least the position of the president will be occupied by someone who is going to embody some of the principles, religious or not, that we need as a moral example for all of us to get along. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being.
And this is the antidote for Trump. Let's get in. I've got some notes to read to you to let you know who you just voted for. Not the woke ADOS. Not the ones who went to the polls and voted Democratic down ballot, let the top blank, and did not put Biden Harris there. I'm speaking to those who went out and voted for the top of this ticket. Let me just share with you this sweet Catholic boy who is so faith-filled. He is just going to be the moral compass for America because of that naughty Trump who was tweeting all those hateful things. This is the answer to the 4 racists in office for 4 years is to replace them with a racist in office for 65 years combined. Let's get into it. Biden is no Mother Teresa. He is a war criminal, a warmonger, enemy of the people in need, especially the ADOS. He is a pathological liar and a racist. Like I mentioned on Picking Kamala, why take her tirades on the debate stage personal when you know full well that both you, Biden, and Kamala were losing? She literally had to drop out of the race. She could not raise money after the ADOS destroyed her in the social media spaces, and Tulsi Gabbard finished her off during the debates. So let's stop pretending like the people chose her and Biden. Let's just stop that. Wall Street gave Biden $48 million towards his campaign, and they gave Trump $18 million. Now, had we known that, we could have just stopped, even guessing about who was going to be elected next. Follow the money. David Sirotto tweeted, "A government in the richest country on earth in the middle of a deadly pandemic is still shaming people for demanding healthcare for all. Healthcare for all is not normal." Biden spends most of his time starting wars, screwing over the poor and the workers, and prosecuting whistleblowers. And this is who Michael Moore says is the antidote to Donald Trump right now. A good Catholic with great character, a good person. The weapons industry lobbyists are advising Joe Biden right now. He's a corporatist warmonger. See, the journalism that drove y'all to the polls is a herd mentality. That's why I don't deal with the corporate with 3Ks news media. I don't deal with MSNBC and CNN and CBS. None of that. Because they have managed to make more of a racist in office for 4 years than that of the racist plural in office for a combined 65 years. As I said prior, Obama, during Biden's vice presidency, deported twice as many immigrants as did Trump. Maybe that's why he was getting the immigrant vote to the numbers that he was. He was actually better for immigrants. I'm going to do another show talking about his transition team and his cabinet that nobody's talking about in the mainstream media. Out here, as I mentioned prior, we have a supermajority Democrat with a Democratic governor, and the homeless are sleeping under bridges, and there's fracking wells up and down the state. And this is someone who told you we're not doing anything specifically for you, and that nothing will fundamentally change. I'm going over now to some of my screenshots to give you some bullet points of more of the puckery between Biden and Kamala. Bear with me. I like to defer to my notes because I don't want to miss any good points. Joe Biden's lengthy history of fabrication, plagiarism, and racial controversy. Let me play you a couple of them.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right, and his memory had failed him.
Joseph, the new questions stem from taped remarks.
And that's who our people voted into the highest office in the land. Moving on. In 1987, Biden said publicly that he marched during the civil rights movement, but later admitted he was not an activist and he was not out marching. I wrote the damn crime bill, he says. The 94 crime bill, mass incarceration, more prisons, longer sentencing, escalated war on drugs, targeted African Americans. ADOS. Let me just play a little bit.
How perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, "I'm ashamed that I voted for the 94 crime bill." You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all.
Not at all. Perspective.
Moving on. This is who Michael Moore is gaslighting. Let's talk about Kamala the Chameleon. How Kamala Harris fought to keep nonviolent prisoners locked up. As California AG, she spent years subverting a 2011 Supreme Court ruling requiring the state to reduce its prison population. The overseeing judicial panel nearly found the state in contempt of court. Prisoners are getting paid $1.45 a day to fight the California wildfires. That's Kamala. Kamala Harris' AG office tried to keep inmates locked up for cheap labor. She needed them to put out those fires. Lawyers for Attorney General Kamala Harris had argued in court that if forced to release these inmates early, prisons would lose an important labor pool. That's your vice president. I didn't vote for that. Federal judges order California to expand prison releases, which she refused. %87% of Democrats support Medicare for all, although Joe Biden does not. Biden again dishonestly suggests he opposed the Iraq war from the beginning. But this is the choir boy. Biden's opposition to marijuana legalization is at odds with most Americans' views. Why? It keeps us on lockdown. A majority of Americans, especially Democrats, support legalization. Biden does not. Keeps our brothers in prisons while the states turn a profit. You see, while the white folks own the weed shops in the hood and profit, not the ex-felons who were arrested for peddling a nickel bag of funk. White folks profit. White folks own the businesses in our communities. Edward Snowden, a famous whistleblower, Joe Biden told countries there'd be consequences if they granted him asylum. The weapons industry, I shared this. The weapons industry lobbyists advising Biden. More war is coming. NAFTA happened under Obama and Jim Crow Joe. All those jobs that were farmed out overseas that left our countrymen in peril, which led to the opioid crisis. Now, I'm not crying over that so much because they get rehabilitation. Our brothers get prison. Our crack addicted get jail, where they're raped, sodomized, beaten to a pulp. Joe Biden's vote for war in October 2002, he was one of 77 senators who gave President George Bush the authority to use force in Iraq. He is still trying to explain that choice. Your president. Well, he's not the president yet. We'll have to wait and see what the Electoral College says on December the 14th. So they want to drag Trump for claiming to be the president, and the corporate with 3 Ks news media crowns Biden the president and Kamala the VP. And the votes are still being counted. And there's all type of election fraud being found out. That the Democratic loyalists believe the Democrats fly above that radar. Only the Republicans are guilty of suppressing the vote, not the Democrats, right? The U.S. is running out of bombs to drop. That was in 2015. Yeah, ran out of bombs. They dropped so many. Obama, Biden, your new would-be president. I hope not. I'm really still hoping not. U.S. says deportation of Honduran children, a warning to illegal immigrants. This was July 15, 2014. Former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden once said he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle in regards to desegregation. That was fact-checked. It was correct. Tara Reid claims Joe Biden said, "I want to F you" during alleged sexual assault. But you guys just want to ignore and gloss over his transgressions in all these areas, Michael Moore. He's the choir boy. He's Catholic. This is who y'all voted for, not me. Joe Biden named President Obama's former top immigration advisor, Cecilia Munoz, to his transition team. She defended family separations under Obama. She's joining Biden's transition team. I'm just reading you the headlines. During her time, Munoz, that is, in the White House, Munoz often justified Obama's harsh immigration enforcement policies, including the administration's deportation of thousands of Central American children and its decision to kill an executive order that would have halted deportations. Some of these things are going to happen. There will be parents separated from their children. We don't have to like it, but it's a result of having a broken system. This was Munoz, who Biden just selected. While everybody wants to point fingers at Trump for the kids separated from their families, she said, and I repeat, some of these things are going to happen. There will be parents separated from their children. We don't have to like it, but it is a result of having a broken system. This is what she said while under Obama. And yet, Crystal Ball says, U.S. government under Trump orphaned children as an intentional act of cruelty. There are no words for this horror. But nobody comes for Obama and Biden for having done it twice as much as Trump. But Trump is the racist boogeyman in office for 4 years, compared to Biden and Kamala, a combined 65 years racist in office, okay? Lee Fang says it's going to be really interesting to see how liberals respond to Biden immigration policy if he's in office. Will ICE detainers at jails, a hallmark of the Obama years that fueled deportations, still be considered fascist? So, this is what we're dealing with. Michael Moore, of all people, I lost great respect for him given this Stephen Colbert interview. It was abominable and atrocious to suggest that Joe Biden and Kamala are somehow bringing morality back to a government that never had any, especially concerning the ADOS. Let me make sure I finished all my notes. Yeah, that's what I had to share about that nonsense that he was spinning, about the nonsense of Black Lives Matter now trying to get reparations and police reform after putting them in the office and being ignored, no meeting, no callbacks. I don't anticipate there will be any. And to talk about Ayanna Pressley's class-based policies, which we all know do not fix race. We're almost at the hour. Let me get the reading in and I'll jump through some of your comments, family. Thank you so much and welcome to the live. If I haven't addressed you directly, I will do so when I read through your comments. I thank you for being here. We're reading again from Prejudential. I told you I'm on my square akin to Dr. Charles Morris, making the case for reparations. Well, he didn't do that. He made the case to deliver a Democratic top of the ticket in a Republican Congress at the time to protect the Black South after Teddy Roosevelt dishonorably discharged 167 of our Buffalo soldiers, denied them federal government jobs, denied them the right to re-enlist, and took away their pensions after they were wrongfully accused of murdering a second white man that they were quarantined in their barracks behind the allegations that they had murdered the first white man. And so Dr. Charles Morris, pastor of Abyssinian Church, suggested that we get them back by delivering a Democratic top of the ticket and a Republican bottom to protect the Black South. In the same way, I'm on my square, this and every show, dealing with reparations, making the case for reparations, and making a case for a Republican top of the ticket and a Democratic Congress to protect the over 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. And I've been using the book Prejudential by Margaret Kimberly to help us unpack Black America and the president so we can just be singularly focused on all the ill will of every president in office, all the way through to Trump, against the ADOS, and why we have to fight, and we must do something very, very different. We must weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering. So prayerfully it'll catch on. If not, with the boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Zs will hear my pleas, and we'll be doing something different before our third world in the country our ancestors built with their lives. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009. As usual, family, I'll read and make my commentary in between, and then get to your comments and pray us out. I'm only going to be doing this show Tuesdays and Thursdays because I am doing a lot of work out here with the California team. I've got some other things happening with respect to bringing a march for reparations during the inauguration that I can't really speak a whole lot about, but I'm working on that. Working on some other things that just are very, very time consuming. So I think Tuesdays and Thursdays are sufficient. And I may keep Sunday, it just depends. That's a flex day. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm really working to commit to those dates given my schedule. So forgive me if you don't see me as often as you've grown accustomed to, but the work is really intense and it's ongoing, okay? George W. Bush. The 43rd president of the United States came to office not by popular vote, but through victory in the Electoral College, which is how Trump got in the first time, right? Hillary had 3 million more popular votes. And the Electoral College, Trump had more electoral votes because she didn't campaign in the Midwest, in the Rust Belt. And folks were tired of Obama 2.0 and chose to vote for Trump to get more of a popularist in office to see, to take their chances versus losing more jobs through NAFTA policies. And Obama started 6 additional wars, dropped so many bombs he ran out, droned the innocent people overseas to death. He dropped so many bombs he practically ran out. Then he murdered Gaddafi and got the Nobel Peace Prize. So folks had had enough. This mechanism had elected Rutherford B. Hayes in 1876, but over the next 124 years, Americans were assured that a repeat of the scenario was remote. Until election day in 2000, George W. Bush won the state of Florida because his brother, Governor Jeb Bush, issued policies that took thousands of Black voters, almost all Democrats, off the voter rolls. Florida prevented former felons from voting, and under Governor Bush's direction, the state undertook a massive campaign that claimed many eligible voters were felons and thus ineligible. Between 57 and 91,000 people were purged from the voter rolls, most of them erroneously. Much was made of, quote, hanging chads, partially punched ballots that could nonetheless be deemed invalid, and the Supreme Court case Bush v. Gore decided the election on that basis. Black voter suppression, taken straight from the Reconstruction era playbook, won the day. Bush, the younger, became president because the power of anti-Black racism had not abated. Bush entered office as an unpopular man, with more than half the country opposing him. He had the good political fortune of serving in office on September 11, 2001, when a terrorist attack killed 3,000 people in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. I believe it was more than that. I was in New York when those towers came down. And if it wasn't for planning a trip to Sedona, I would have been under those towers trying to commute to work. And I believe it was a government inside job. I don't believe that those towers, the way they pummeled, did so on their own accord. The way those planes hit, there was no way those towers came down of their own accord from the way those planes hit. That is a lie. They imploded those buildings. You can look it up. Look up the documentaries. You'll see. A compliant corporate media rallied around him and didn't ask hard questions about how the attack could have taken place at all. My sentiment exactly. They were in a no-fly zone. How was that? The result was that a man widely considered unprepared for the presidency and subpar intellectually wound up serving 2 terms in office. George W. Bush benefited from having aides who knew how to make him and the Republican Party appear less racist, as does Joe Biden. The goal was to diminish black turnout and perhaps get votes from middle-of-the-road whites. Bush famously brought black faces to political conventions and other venues to ameliorate the racism that his party had stoked. But all was for naught in August 2005 when Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. The federal government was unprepared as the levees failed and New Orleans was flooded. Residents who couldn't leave were stranded and the iconic city took on the look of what is commonly called the Third World. More than 2,000 people died and the unresponsive federal government was blamed for the human catastrophe. All the photo ops did him little good, as Kanye West famously said, George Bush doesn't care about black people. That assessment was popularly thought to be true, and putting black people in photos no longer impressed anyone. Even before the Katrina disaster, Bush received a negligible number of black votes, just like every other post-civil rights era Republican. However, he did prepare the country for the possibility of a black president with 2 major appointments to his cabinet. He appointed Condoleezza Rice as National Security Advisor, and former General Colin Powell, who had held that position previously, was confirmed as Secretary of State. There had never been 2 such highly placed black people in any administration. Powell in particular was greatly admired by black people and had briefly considered running for president himself. The 2 played a role in every major foreign policy decision and were lauded by most other black people because of it. Their presence not only served to bring black pride to an otherwise reviled administration, but it also began the process of ending black America's left-leaning foreign policy positions. Black Americans had historically mistrusted white America's foreign policy rationales and openly respected and admired some world leaders, such as Fidel Castro, who were considered the nation's enemies. Black Americans had held him in high regard despite censure by politicians and the corporate media. That tradition of independent thought was severely curtailed by the sight of Powell and Rice executing foreign policy decisions for a Republican president. When Colin Powell addressed the UN claiming that satellite photos of trucks proved that Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was manufacturing chemical weapons, Black Americans continued to support him personally, despite their disapproval of the 2003 invasion that followed his speech. Excuses ran the gamut from the argument that he was only doing his job, that's what they say about Skamala the Chameleon, and her record as a prosecutor down here locking up black folks. She's only doing her job. 2, fanciful claims that he was like the character, the spook who sat by the door, trusted by white people, but secretly plotting revolution. Powell was in fact a careerist who had made inroads with powerful Republicans. Reagan's Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger was a mentor of Powell's and landed him a national security advisor position late in the Reagan administration. Rice also rose to prominence as a result of connection with powerful Republicans. George H.W. Bush had appointed her to a staff position on the National Security Council. The initial public pronouncements were glowing. She was an accomplished pianist and former figure skater who spoke French and Russian. She was a true believer in the Republican Party and had famously stated that civil rights would have come to the United States without mass political agitation, and that segregation had become not just a real moral problem, but it had become a real pain in the neck for white people. History shows that white people had violently defended segregation. The pain in the neck was entirely a Rice invention. The Powell and Rice foreign policy team behaved as all their predecessors had in promoting American hegemony around the world. In 2001, they both said that Saddam Hussein had been contained, neutered, and defamed. Quote, he has not developed any significant capability with respect to weapons of mass destruction. He is unable to protect conventional power against his neighbors, close quote, Powell declared. Rice added for good measure, quote, we are able to keep his arms from him. His military forces have not been rebuilt, close quote. Those words went straight down the proverbial memory hole after September 11. Bush used the al-Qaeda attacks to make good on the Iraqi regime change project that neoconservatives had long wanted. Powell and Rice went right along with Bush. They prepared Black America to expect Black people in high places to act as their white counterparts did. They made it easier to forget the political left consensus that had long held sway among Black people. If Colin Powell could come close to running for president and then make the case for aggression and war crimes committed by a Republican, supporting a Black commander-in-chief was a logical progression. Let me take a sip. Our own people constantly doing us in, family. When will it end? Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017. While Black Americans engaged in endless debate about whether they would ever live to see a Black president, only a few thoughtful people asked if that prospect would be worthwhile. Present company included. God knows I voted for this man for 2 terms. I wish I could take it back. The office itself has furthered the racist project ever since the country's founding. Presidents have either been openly bigoted or proved to be fair-weather friends ready to stand in solidarity with anti-Black racism whenever doing so became politically expedient. Barack Obama's ascension to the office and his actions in it prove that the history and practice of politics are weighted against Black people in this country. To this day, this man is still interfering in our elections. To this day, the sheep will continue to praise and worship Barack Obama. It is unbelievable, the spin cycle of the corporate with 3 Ks news media and how it has the minds of Black folks. He won election after the concentration of wealth and power of the group known colloquially as the 1% weighed in heavily. And this is why when white folks are in support of it, ADOS needs to go the opposite direction. When white folks support it, we need to be against it. This was a hit and a half for our ass, okay? That white folks, the top 1%, got behind him. I wasn't as politically astute as I am now. The people of the U.S. typically have no voice in the presidential selection process until it is well underway. Before any ballots are cast in Iowa or New Hampshire, the ruling class hold a casting call of prospective candidates and give their thumbs up or down. There was no exception for Barack Obama. In fact, as a Black person, he was scrutinized even more closely to make sure he would not veer off the prescribed path to the highest political office in the land. The rules of being a serious candidate go something like this. Don't make rich people angry. Don't make white people angry. Don't appear to help Black people in any way, because that gets white people angrier than just about anything else. Obama knew this, but he was also instinctively a conservative man. He has admitted himself in video, look it up on YouTube, that he is a moderate Republican. which he said to anyone who was really paying attention. During his first campaign in 2008, he spoke lovingly of Ronald Reagan as a, quote, transformative political figure. The biracial child of a Kenyan father who had abandoned him, Obama never passed up a chance to lambaste black men as if they all were the father he hardly knew. On Father's Day and in a black church, no less, Obama gave credence to the most damaging myths about black men. Quote, but if we are honest with ourselves, we'll admit that what too many fathers also are is missing from too many lives and too many homes. They have abandoned their responsibilities, acting like boys instead of men. And the foundations of our families are weaker because of it. You and I know how true this is in the African American community, close quote. If Hillary Clinton, his competitor for the Democratic nomination, had made a remark about absent black fathers, she would have been rightly called a racist. Obama was so celebrated that he could get away with any words, no matter how harmful. On the other hand, his white predecessors had already benefited from the belief that Democrats could do no wrong. His dismissive words were part of a long and ignominious tradition of black voters clinging desperately to whatever party claimed to work in their interest. Obama often managed to do what no one else could. He even succeeded in disparaging his former church pastor, the United Church of Christ, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Wright is a firebrand who takes no prisoners in speaking the truth about American history. But when his past statements such as God damn America for the country's treatment of its citizens became known, the candidate disassociated himself from his former pastor. Jeremiah Wright actually married him and Michelle. Obama described, you see what they'll do for political expedience. Threw his own pastor under the bus to become president. We have no friends. Obama described the well-respected minister as being wrong and divisive, an old man who lived in the past and whose words amplified the negative. Such scorn directed toward clergy is generally not acceptable among black people. But if Bill Clinton could use Sister Soldier, Obama could publicly castigate his former minister without paying a political price. Obama was a shrewd politician with an excellent marketing team behind him. His slogan of bringing hope and change struck a chord and inspired millions to support him. Even those who had previously been disengaged politically became Obama enthusiasts. Hillary Clinton was considered the front runner, but Obama's acumen made the race more competitive than anyone had expected, and he emerged as the nominee. When Obama was elected to the Senate in 2004, America had a number of black politicians, but very little in the way of black politics. In his speech at that year's Democratic convention, he said, quote, there is no white America, there is no black America. This seemingly idealistic, historically absurd statement was in fact a clear political manifesto. Obama was making the case to white people that there would be no agenda resurrecting black politics either. Black people were just overjoyed to witness his ascension and gave him a pass. Black voters are often among the most left-leaning of all Democrats, but their politics can be modified by two things: the fear of Republican victory and the desire to support black candidates for office. Isn't that what just happened? Again. Dying disproportionately from government-sanctioned executions. Dying disproportionately from the COVID. Dying disproportionately from homelessness. And yet our priority with the only commodity we've got as a wealthless group was to unseat Trump. Who white folks put into office? Not the ADOS. But we're victims. That's what I'm told, that American descends of chattel slavery, when we name ourselves that, we're behaving like victims. To name who we are as the predominant bottom caste in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Stop acting like a victim. That name makes you sound like a victim. But that is who you are. That is what you bleed. But for it, you wouldn't be here. Obama was unfamiliar to most black voters around the country. They knew little about him. Some feared that his mixed race ancestry and parentage from another country gave him no connection with themselves or with their lives. Didn't that prove to be true? Others were concerned with whether white people would vote for him. Those fears disappeared overnight when Obama emerged victorious in the Iowa caucuses in January 2008. He proved he could get white votes and that he could possibly become president of the United States. That ended any scrutiny or questioning from most black voters. They could practice support for someone perceived as one of their own without risking Republican victory. Those who dared to pose a question about Obama's candidacy were shouted down in favor of the prospect of seeing a black president. Some claimed that they would make demands of Obama after he emerged victorious. After again. How'd that work out? They would, quote, hold his feet to the fire, as the saying went. Yeah, Black Lives Matter, that's what you intend to do, since it worked so well under Obama, right? After he was elected, there was, of course, no such effort. Most Black Americans acted like 30 million Secret Service agents, putting themselves in the path of any criticism of their president. White racism made it difficult to critique him. Some who were disposed to pose hard questions would instead defend him lest his racist detractors succeed in bringing him down. Barack Obama came along at the perfect moment in history for a candidate like him to win the presidential election. Black politics had been destroyed decades earlier when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were assassinated. The Black Panthers and other revolutionaries were imprisoned or dead. The liberation movement had been destroyed by COINTELPRO, a program orchestrated at the highest levels of power in this country. Black politics came under the same pressure from the Democratic Party donor class. The rise of Black politics in the Obama era was illusory, and few substantive issues were addressed. Chief among Obama's tormentors was New York real estate developer and reality show star Donald Trump. In 2010 and 2011, Trump became the face of the so-called birthers. I don't know why Hillary Clinton started that during her campaign, but Trump got credit for it because, of course, he's the racist boogeyman, the only one, according to Biden, that's ever graced the presidency in this country. A subset of people who believe that Obama was born in Kenya and not Hawaii and therefore ineligible under the Constitution to become president. Despite Obama providing as evidence his birth certificate and passport, Trump persisted in popularizing the racist tinge speculation. The president ultimately chose to release a more detailed long-form birth certificate shortly after he carried out the assassination of Osama bin Laden. The well-chosen timing ended in public humiliation for Trump as Obama made him the butt of jokes at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011. At the time, no one knew that Trump would run for the Republican nomination and become Obama's successor. Wow, look at that. Black Americans had little but happiness to show for Obama's 2 terms in office. He behaved as his Democratic predecessors had, making white Americans' dreams come true. His solution to the 2008 economic collapse was to bail out the financial sector. There were no proposals for the government to step in and assist the millions of people devastated by wrongdoing at the top. Obama successfully marketed himself as an anti-war candidate, but he never said anything of the kind. He said he was only opposed to dumb wars. That is to say, those that involve sending U.S. troops to fight abroad. Instead, he relied on proxies as a regime change method in Libya, Syria, and Ukraine. But Russiagate, right, family? The U.S. military's Africa Command, AFRICOM, continued the American takeover of African nations' military forces. Under the guise of fighting terrorism, Obama sent drones that killed civilians in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Yemen. He even killed American citizens, Anwar al-Awlaki and his 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, via drone strikes in Yemen. At home, Black people continue to be killed at disproportionately higher rates by members of law enforcement, one every 28 hours. But Trump is who y'all want to blame for government sanction executions. The Black Lives Matter movement came to prominence in the last 2 years of Obama's presidency, but its leaders were as squeamish about taking on Obama as the rest of Black America. There was never a connection made between the mass movement that BLM spawned and demands for federal government redress. Even activists handled him with kid gloves. And this is who we want to lead charge? The Black Lives Matter is the next civil rights movement, never holding Obama accountable, and now have Soros and all kind of white money backing it. Patrice Cullors has a television deal for some series she's trying to produce. And they go out here and get Biden and Harris nominated and now want to make demands for reparations after the fact. These are your leaders of the second civil rights movement, right? Not the ADOS. Y'all come for the ADOS movement who's been putting in that real work. Yeah. Yeah, we come for Biden Harris. We expose who they really are. And we're nailed to the cross. But you want these mealy mouth people, the BLM, who are really on less than 1% of transgenders who may have been killed, weaponizing the executions of our Black men, women, and children to deliver the less than 1% gays that may have suffered the same, while going off to do their TV deals and not channeling any of that money back into the communities hardest hit by government-sanctioned execution and COVID. Those are your saviors. Not come help throw bricks with the ADOS movement, but follow and give money to Black Lives Matter. Ultimately, all of Obama's shortcomings were overshadowed by the shock of Donald Trump's victory over Hillary Clinton in 2016. The woman thought to be the favorite since the moment Obama nearly cleared the Democratic field for her by naming her his Secretary of State ended up the loser. She won the popular vote but lost in a close contest decided by the Electoral College. It was an ignominious end to the first Black American presidency, which revealed the hollowness of the achievement. And the next time we meet, Donald Trump. Let's see what you have to say, beautiful family. Got Keys Studio, thank you for joining the live. Adrian Taylor, I see you, fam. Blind Focus 1, Jirasham, Yasharala, thank you so much for joining the live. To everyone, Shannon McFall, I see you, my love. Margaret McCall, Debonair 1. I'm just scrolling up. Got a Jacob, I see you, fam. Maurice Carlisle, if I didn't give you love. Hello, my love. Okay. Ayel Mel Israelite, thank you for joining the live. Say Kusi say. I appreciate all of you, and even for those who have yet to chat, I thank you for joining the live. This is a long show. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's usually going to run about 2 hours, maybe less now that we're close to the end of our book. But I think I'm going to find another book that I can read a little short. I think I'm going to do this one next, family. It's called The Black Tax, The Costs of Being Black in America. The other ones are too big for all the work I have. I might highlight this and school us on the black tax. You know, I probably won't read it unless just little highlights. But get this book by Sean Rochester. He's an immigrant, but he's dealing with these issues. And I like what he had to say about it in YouTube. So I got the book. We'll check it out. Okay, let's see what you have to say. I'm only going to do the primary comments, okay? Joseph Thompson, if I didn't say hello, hello. I'm just going through the highlights. They want everything sanitized and Mickey Mouse. You know it. Let's see here. I think he's referring to how many ADOS lineage slam the movement. Hashtag. Gada Jacob says, Black Lives Matter will all black is black ADOS reparations. Ain't that deep? Yep. Them and Narcan and Cobra want our reparations to make everybody whole. Even though down here in LA, African immigrants are 60,000 liquid to ADOS 200 liquid. That's stats from 2014, 2004 to 2014, Color of Wealth LA. In Boston, ADOS is $8 liquid, 700 total assets to Caribbean immigrants, 12,000 total assets. I could go on and on, but just look at the previews. I mean, the archives. I would not, Tanya Princess Jones says, I would not have voted for New Deal, so white. Yeah, I didn't vote for that either. The president, Maurice Carlisle says the presidential election is rigged. Absolutely. I'm going to dig a little deeper because I heard a report by Dr. Shiva that election fraud has been going on since the 70s. I'm going to drill down a little bit more and have a show prepared on election fraud. The powers that should, I'm still reading Maurice Carlisle, the powers that shouldn't be wanted Biden to win, even if they have to fudge the numbers. Yep. Why? Because it's another Republican in Democratic clothing. Biden is going to protect the 1% in the same way Trump did. Nothing new under the sun. The people will still eat dirt. Black Lives Matter never endorsed a candidate back in 2016. Now this. Absolutely. Ain't that something? Ain't that something, family? Brian Johnson says the only movement initiated by them, Black Lives Matter, was painting murals on main streets. Policy changes equal trick minus bag language. Yep, trick bag language. Yep, you got that right. Gada Jacob, this election was absolutely stolen. The Democratic Party knew early that Biden was losing. It would lose, thus the hijacking. Oh, yeah, he was losing. Oh, yes, he was losing. I mean, we had 20% of blacks. Trump got 20% of the black electorate vote. Show did, I think it doubled for black women to 8%, and black men went from 7 to 13%. Yeah, but they want us to believe that Trump is the liar. I just broke down how much of a liar Biden is. Celebrities will be promoting those vaccines any day now. Don't you take them, family. I'm doing a show. Don't you take those vaccines. Don't do it because they're coming to the black communities. I got a segment I'm doing on Cuomo fighting Trump to let it come to the black communities and the Latin communities in New York, claiming that they're discriminating by preparing them for the wealthy. You see the trick bag? Doing a whole show on that. Canceling student loan debt is a scam. Absolutely, Maurice. And it's a white wealth transfer. 80 to 84% of us don't hold degrees. To 86% of us don't hold degrees. Wait, 84. Between 16 and 20% of us hold degrees. But compared to white folks who are majority degree with higher education because they can afford to pay for their degrees. Okay. Many of which get, these universities get paid off to let their dumb children into those colleges and universities. What we have to prove ourselves worthy of those degrees. Going to college is a scam for Black folks when you can't come out and get a job commensurate with the hundreds of thousands that you pour into your education. Whatever happened to protecting Black Americans? They don't give a damn about us. They're trying to replace us with immigrants. Trey Lincoln and 11 million to 22 million more immigrants. That is what Biden-Harris promised. And that's why I'm praying that Trump wins. Marky Mark, she's tripping. We are the ones who deserve federal guarantees and protections. We're talking about the Ayanna Pressley piece here. As blind focus, as Cali goes, so goes the nation. You got that right. You got that right. As California goes with immigration and homelessness, it's coming to your state sooner than you even can expect, with 22 million pouring over into this country. And when it comes for your state, you'll be singing a different tune. Maybe that's when you'll get on board our reparations train and Democratic down ballot train. Debonair 1 says, canceling student debt won't help ADOS. Remember, Trump had a school too. You could be bailing him out. Ain't that the truth, Debonair 1? It's not going to help us when we're only 16 to 20% of the educated. Blind focus. He is Catholic, but has gone against everything regarding Catholic social teaching. A lot of Black people are Catholic where I am, but that didn't stop him from oppressing Black Americans. Thank you, blind focus. Absolutely true. I just ran down a laundry list of his injuries to Blacks in this country alike, having been in office for 47 years. But Black folks ran to the polls to vote him and Kamala in. I don't even know. I've got to really find out the number of people are saying 85% of our electorate showed up for this. I have a hard time believing that. I've got to vet those numbers before I quote them, okay? I have a hard time because only 65% of the electorate showed up for Obama, and 90% of those voted for him. But I have a hard time believing that we showed up to the polls 85% for Biden and Kamala, given their records. That would shock and appall me. Says, why do you think Michael Moore wouldn't take his position? That is the privilege of whiteness supremacy. Because, fam, it is profitable to weaponize the oppressed. What would you talk about if you didn't talk about the oppression of whites and Blacks alike in this country in your films and documentaries and expose government? It's profitable for him to do that, to the tune of 50 million in 2019. So he has taken his rightful privileged place among whiteness. It doesn't matter that he wears a ball cap and a sweatshirt. Many of them do that. Steve Jobs, you won't see these white boys rolling in dough, dressed to the nines. That's Black folks trying to feel rich. You know, I love putting myself together. I don't have that kind of money by no stretch of the imagination. Speaking of which, shout out to my donors, Astrid Maurer, Deborah. Oh, there was one other. I mean, my goodness, thank you for the love. To those of you who donate, I thank you so much for supporting the show. That was just rich to see that. I was humbled and honored. I thank you, thank you, thank you. I remember Astrid because she's one of my very dear friends and was a top donor. Okay, she was one of the top donors. Deborah was behind her. And oh, the young lady's name. I'm going to have my list of names the next time so I can give a proper thanks to everyone who's donated to the show. I have a PayPal link, Friends of ADOS TV. You can find me there if you'd like to contribute to the show. It helps me to offset the expenses of the StreamYard and the time I put into doing whatever research needed to bring you ADOS Hot Topics, okay? So thank you to all my contributors. And I'll have the list next time. Shannon McFall, yes, my love. Biden hasn't had a conscience for 47 years. He certainly won't have one now. This man is lying. Blind focus, absolutely. But do you see Michael Moore, of all people, Don't you lose respect for people that do this kind of nonsense? Like we don't know better? It just is really insulting to my intelligence. Brian Johnson, a leopard don't change his stripes. You got that right, my love. If people don't see that as clear as political move, picking Harris. Oh, they didn't pick each other, honey. That was a donor class. They knew who to put in charge. You're dealing with Kamala, who wouldn't even sue. She wouldn't even prosecute Steve Mnuchin, who was over One West Bank for wrongfully foreclosing on ADOS homes in the Bay. Now he's National Treasury Secretary. He's given $5 trillion or more by now to his billionaire buddies during the pandemic. And maybe $2 trillion he's thrown our direction. $1,200 don't even cover my mortgage out here. Well, it covers the mortgage, but not the HOA. So yeah, they knew who to put in charge. They want more of that Obama. They want to clear us totally off the monopoly boards. They want to come and wipe out the rest of our homes. You wait until Q1. You wait until Q1 when this government has yet to do anything to stave off these foreclosures. Yeah, you can get a forbearance, but a lot of folks, if you don't have a FHA, let me tell you something. You're going to owe that in a balloon payment. I don't know what the FHA is making exceptions for, but I was told that if I took on the forbearance, I was going to owe it in a lump sum. So I made sure not to get behind in my mortgage because they're coming for the rest of the houses that they didn't get in 08. Blind Focus says, Moore needs to go and pray a few more rosaries and ask the Lord to give him the gift of discernment. Be ye not deceived. Absolutely, fam. Absolutely, fam. You're absolutely right about that. Knowing full well was all an act. Kamala. Lee, oh, I love when he contributes. Oh, Lord, I copy and paste. What's up, Lee MC? Thank you for joining the live. I don't think I saw this. Herb Saint, thank you for joining the live. I was scrolling so fast. ADOS right now don't care. I shared a commentary done by a young Middle Easterner. He criticized Biden's role in the Middle East while VP and his role in mass incarceration. Shared this information with Black San Antonio, a Facebook group. No one liked it, and one person even commented typing #yawn. We got a long way to go, family. Well, Lee, I'm always grateful for your very insightful comments, and I'm so grateful to you. Thank you. I share, and I often let you know I share. I try my best to give when I share who I'm reposting from. So thank you for always contributing great information in my feed. I'm grateful to you. Herb Saint, thank you for joining the live. If I missed you, habitual liar sounds like, yep. Unbelievable. Jarasham Yasharala. I hope I didn't botch that completely. Glenn Beck brought out the information about Biden's family owning slaves and passing them down via inheritance while they continually say no to our reparations. Barack descends from slave owners. He, in fact, is a cousin to George Bush, as is Cheney on his white mama side. Look it up. And this is why we need to unflatten blackness by referring to ourselves as American descendants of chattel slavery. Because flattening blackness, Barack is African, Kenyan, American. His white mama. Kamala the chameleon, although she's Brahmin Indian caste, her skin makes her black in this country. Her father is Indian Jamaican. He descends from slave owners. But she's black. And this is why we are the American descendants of chattel slavery, because neither of them can claim to be that. Moving on. Brian says, but blacks will still give him and Harris unlimited passes for the foolery. Oh, yes. Benign neglect of their own people. Yep, they're fully prepared while claiming that we are crying victim. Not the atrocious records for the people they just voted into office. But we're crying victim. The least of us in this country. or no care about our babies separated from their families with mass incarceration. Number 1 in 9 Black kids have an imprisoned parent. 1 in 9 Black kids have an imprisoned parent. But Black folks crying crocodile tears for the kids at the border that Barack deported twice as many as Trump with the help of ICE that Trump didn't have the assistance for. But nobody cries for our children. 1 in 9 Black kids have an imprisoned parent. Thank you, Tanya Princess Jones, for sharing that. The Obama Wanderlust. Citigroup owned Obama was Wall Street's choice. Citigroup owned Obama was Wall Street's choice, as is Biden-Harris. They're working for Wall Street. They're billionaire buddies, the top 1%, not the people. That's why I believe there was election fraud. Bipartisan neoliberalism. Got Keys Studio, thank you for joining the live. Satra Del Rey 360, thank you for joining the live. Robin Freelix, oh, thank you, my love. Thank you for joining the live. Well, with that said, family, we're at the end of our comments. I thank you so much for tuning in. I want to pray a prayer of protection over you for my peace of mind and remind you that the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until either Sunday or next Tuesday, because I didn't bring you a Tuesday show, you make it a beautiful God-inspired rest of your evening and next few days. And you go out here in this world and act like you know who you are, okay? I love you, Black family. I love you strong. Bye, family. Peace. Deuces. Love you.